Hey everybody, Brian with PhoneArena, and today we're going to take a look at the LG Nexus 4 versus the LG Nexus 5. Now, of course, these are both Nexus devices. They're running stock Android, so a lot of the difference is going to be under the hood and in the design. So let's start there. The Nexus 5 features a 5-inch 1080p display. The Nexus 4 has a 4.7-inch 720p display. The Nexus 4 has always been a little bit washed out in terms of its colors, so we're very happy to see that the Nexus 5 is a very bright and vibrant display, and it definitely is an upgrade from the Nexus 4. In terms of the design, you can see the Nexus 5 is just this flat matte black. It's soft touch plastic, which feels really good in the hand. We don't have any creaks as we're pressing on the device, so even though it is plastic, it adds to a lighter weight experience, and it does not really sacrifice any in terms of feel. The Nexus 4, though, is a really beautiful device. You can see the crystal reflective process kind of shimmering here. That is just a really nice touch. You have this all-glass back, which feels really nice. It's always a little bit of a slippery device, though, so that's something to keep in mind. On the sides, you do have some soft touch paint, and the sides are obviously very sloped, so it gives a good feel in the hand, but the Nexus 5 offers some better grip just because it's, of course, like we said, the plastic soft touch back versus a slippery glass back. That said, the Nexus 4 is probably the better looking device of the two. You know, this crystal reflective process, you know, even though we've had this phone for very long now, we still really like looking at it when it catches the sun just right. It just looks really cool. It gives a really nice look to the device. That said, the Nexus 4... the Nexus 5 is a very good looking device in its own right. It's more down to business. It's more purposeful in its design. It's not flashy, but it's something you would definitely see in a traditional BlackBerry user's hand, for instance, that used to, you know, carry something like that. It fits nicely into a suit pocket. You know, it's a very, as we said, a handsome design for this device. Now, right now, the Nexus 5 is the only device running KitKat. We have a new launcher here. As you can see, if we pull to the left, we've got our Google Now. You can still pull up and get that information, so not a huge difference, but it is nice to have that. Transparencies at the top and the bottom here. So just some visual polish. You can see the wallpaper is going to be more transparent in the app drawer. No longer do we have the widget tab up top. It's now accessed by pressing and holding, and you have your wallpapers, your widgets, and your settings that you can get to right there. We also can now add infinite amount of screens to this device. Simply drag a widget onto an empty screen and it adds it. However, that also means if you clear out a screen, it deletes it. So just be a little bit aware of that. Now, right now, the Nexus 4 is still running Android 4.3, although as it is a Nexus device, we are expecting a 4.4 upgrade here very shortly. As you can see, one of the big differences here that's most striking is the size of the apps in Android 4.4 are bigger. So they've got a redesign. They just look a little bit more clean, less cluttered. You know, it's nice to have so many in one space here, but at the same time, they just look really small after using the Nexus 5 and a little bit cluttered. So we like the new, cleaner look of Android 4.4 in terms of the app drawer. Performance-wise, both of these phones still run very smoothly. The Nexus 5, of course, is going to have updated hardware. It's got the new Snapdragon 800 processor, quad-core clocked at 2.3 gigahertz. This Nexus 4 has the quad-core Snapdragon S4 Pro. It's clocked at 1.5 gigahertz. They both have 2 gigs of RAM, but the Nexus 5 has DDR3 versus the DDR2 on the Nexus 4. So it's going to be faster RAM, and that's something that we would expect on a device that's a year older. Thanks to the stock Android experience, though, the Nexus 4 is still a plenty fast device. We don't have any problems with speed. We don't have any problems with web page rendering, anything like that. So we are definitely not knocking the Nexus 4 in any way. It is still one of the faster devices out there. Still offers a very good user experience. And as the lighter weight lighter weight Android 4.4 gets pushed to the Nexus 4, we expect that performance to probably even be boosted just a little bit. Now, both devices run the Chrome browser, so we're not going to really see any difference here in terms of performance. They both perform extremely well, very smooth, very fluid, no issues with page rendering, anything like that. You have the double tap, you have the pinch to zoom, nice screen rotation. One of the differences, though, that the Nexus 4 does not ship with LTE. Of course, there's a hack to get it to work on T-Mobile USA, but that's really, of course, not officially supported. It is a 3G device. The Nexus 5 ships with LTE, so it's going to give you much faster page loads and just a better overall browsing experience because of that. Another difference between the two is the camera. Although the camera app looks pretty much the same between both phones, one of the differences is the new HDR Plus mode that we're going to find in the Nexus 5 versus just the standard HDR mode. The HDR Plus actually captures 3 images in a burst shot and then uses the algorithm to merge those images. Those 3 images are captured at a different exposure, and that gives the more rich detail that you see in HDR photos versus your standard shots. The Nexus 4 camera was always a bit of a disappointment, so we are very happy to report that the Nexus 5, while still offering an 8 megapixel camera, now offers optical image stabilization. It looks to pretty much be upgraded in every way. Take a look at our samples, but the performance was just way, way better by the Nexus 5. There's really nothing that the Nexus 4 did better. So Google has put a nice emphasis on the camera, produce very acceptable results, and in a lot of situations, very good results. So we're very happy to see that focus there. Just to touch on a few more features, both of these phones obviously have built-in batteries. You don't see any battery doors here. The Nexus 5 upgrades to 23 versus the 2100 milliamps that you see on the Nexus 4. So not much difference, but thanks to the software optimizations of Android 4.4, we are having a very good experience with the battery on the Nexus 5. Heavy users may still need to top off towards the late afternoon, but we're able to get through our day without much problem with normal, moderate to slightly heavy use and still have about 30% left by the time we come home. In terms of call quality, callers actually prefer the Nexus 4 here. They said we just sounded better, that both devices were very good, but the Nexus 4 just sounded a little bit louder, a little bit more clear, and a little bit more natural. The earpiece design is a bit more traditional, so callers sounded just great to us on the Nexus 4. Nexus 5, we don't have any problems, but some people do not like this little tiny circular earpiece. Sometimes you do have to kind of get it in the sweet spot, of course, but that's true of many devices out there, and to us, callers sounded just fine on both phones. So Nexus 4 with a little bit of an advantage there, but not much. Really overall, if you're looking to upgrade, if you have the Nexus 4 and you're going for the Nexus 5, I know a lot of people were on the fence, especially as the battery specs and the camera specs came out, but we're very happy to report that the Nexus 5 really just is an upgrade to the Nexus 4 in every way. The design is obviously different, so it's going to be a different design language there. Some people may not like the design as much as the Nexus 4, but it is a purposeful design. It feels great to use. Android 4.4 is fantastic. This device flies. The camera's better. The battery's better. Really, everything about this is an upgrade over the Nexus 4. And at $350, it's pretty hard to look away from this as an upgrade if you're thinking about it.